Welcome to my story. Tonight, I want to take you back to the evening I finally bought my dream apartment, the one I had worked years to afford, and prepared to share it with the people I loved most. I scrubbed every corner until the place shone, placed glowing candles on the windowsills, and cooked a feast large enough to feed an army of 20. Wine glasses sparkled in rows, flowers stretched across the dining table. Music drifted softly through the rooms. Everything was ready, perfect, waiting. But no one came. At first, I told myself they were delayed, maybe caught in traffic. I checked the group chat again and again. Nothing. Minutes bled into hours. My carefully prepared dishes sat untouched and cooling, and the silence pressed heavier against my chest with every tick of the clock. Finally, curiosity shifted into dread. I opened social media, and there it was. Photos of my parents, my sister, my aunts, all beaming in front of my brother's new apartment. They were toasting, laughing, my mother's smile wide with pride. Not one message for me, not one apology, not one explanation. I stood frozen in my glittering kitchen, the quiet so loud it hurt. My name is Haley Monroe. I'm 27 years old. And if you think you know where this story leads, I promise, it's only just beginning. Because what happens when a family that left you invisible suddenly realizes they need the very light they tried to ignore? I turned off the oven, silenced the music, and sat beneath the dim glow of my abandoned celebration. Then my phone vibrated violently, buzzing with notification after notification. The first was from my mother. "We need to talk now." I stared at those words, my fingers trembling. They hadn't cared enough to show up, but suddenly, they needed me. I didn't answer. I let the screen burn bright with her demand, while my silence cut sharper than any reply I could give. And in that moment, I knew this was no ending at all. It was the opening chapter of something far more complicated. The next morning, my phone was still lit up like a crime scene. Unread notifications stacked on top of missed calls, a dozen voicemails, and a thread of texts from my mom that grew more frantic with every hour. "Pick up. Don't ignore me. This is serious, Haley." For a family who couldn't spare one night for my housewarming, they were suddenly acting like I was the sun their world revolved around. I didn't answer. Not yet. Instead, I brewed a slow cup of coffee, letting the steam rise as I sat by the wide window of my sunlit apartment. My city below was alive, strangers moving with purpose, while my world inside remained suspended. I scrolled through the photos again, punishing myself with each image. My brother's smug grin as he sliced into a cake, Mom planting a kiss on his cheek, Dad raising his champagne glass. And then the caption under my sister's post. "So proud of our golden boy. Finally settled into his new place. Family over everything." Family over everything, I repeated, the bitterness sour in my mouth. Family over everything. Except me. By noon, I gave in and pressed play on a voicemail. My mother's voice poured through, stripped of its usual iron edge, trembling. "Haley, something's come up. It's complicated. We need your help. Please call me back." I almost laughed. Help. The same woman who told me I was average at best. The same parents who skipped my graduations, who found ways to shrink my victories into footnotes, now suddenly reaching for me. I tapped my fingers against the coffee mug, my silence heavier than any curse I could hurl. Another text appeared. Longer. "We made a mistake last night. We should have been at your place. But there's something important we need to discuss. It's about the family finances. Call immediately." Finances. There it was. The truth exposed. Not guilt. Not love. Not regret. Money. Always money. I leaned back in my chair, smirk tugging at my lips. For the first time, I realized they hadn't abandoned me out of carelessness. They had chosen him, again and again. But this time, I was ready. Ready to choose myself. By evening, curiosity got the better of me. I finally answered one of my mom's calls. She didn't waste time. "Haley, thank God. Listen, your father and I need to talk to you about a small situation." Her voice trembled on that word. Situation. I stayed quiet, letting her fill the silence. "It's about your brother's apartment," she continued. "He stretched himself a little thin with the down payment. The bank called. They're asking questions." I closed my eyes, pinching the bridge of my nose. Of course, my brother overspent. And now they wanted me to clean up the mess. My dad's voice boomed suddenly on speaker. "We thought you could step in. You've been saving, right? You're responsible. If you helped cover some of the payments for a while, it would give him room to breathe." I nearly dropped the phone. "Me? After you skipped my housewarming to celebrate him? After 15 years of pretending I didn't exist?" "Don't be dramatic," my mom snapped, the sweetness gone from her tone. "You're single. No kids. Good job. You can spare it. Family sticks together." I laughed, sharp and bitter. "Family sticks together? You couldn't even sit at my table for one night. You toasted him while I sat alone in the dark. And now, you want my money." There was silence. The kind of silence that tastes like fear. Finally, my dad cleared his throat. "Haley, don't make this harder than it has to be. It's just money." "Exactly," I said coldly. "My money. My life. And for once, it's not yours to take." I hung up before they could reply, my hands shaking, not from guilt, but from power. For the first time, the leverage was mine. The next morning, they doubled down. My mom arrived uninvited, rapping her knuckles against my door like she still owned the keys to my life. When I cracked it open, she pasted on a smile, her voice dripping with syrup. "Sweetheart, we didn't mean to upset you. But you don't understand how serious this is. Your brother could lose everything." I crossed my arms, leaning against the frame. He should have thought about that before signing papers he couldn't afford. Her smile twitched, faltered. "We told him you'd help. You've always been the dependable one. Please, Haley, just a little loan. We'll pay you back." The word loan landed like a punchline to a cruel joke. I thought of the birthdays they skipped, the graduations they barely acknowledged, the years of being measured against their golden boy and always found lacking. Suddenly, my so-called dependability was no longer worthless. It was their lifeline. "Funny," I said slowly, "how I become dependable only when you need my money, but when you're celebrating milestones, I'm invisible." From behind her, my dad appeared in the hallway, his presence heavy, his tone sharp as a blade. "Stop being petty. You owe this family." And in that moment, something inside me didn't break. It crystallized. "No, Dad. You owe me. You owe me 15 years of dinners where my voice was drowned out. You owe me every holiday where I was too average to notice. And you owe me an apology you'll never give." My mom's eyes shone, but I knew the glimmer wasn't guilt. It was fear. Fear because she could feel it. I wasn't bending anymore. I opened the door wider, not an invitation, but dismissal. "The bank is your problem, not mine. Good luck." Then I shut it, the lock clicking into place like a gun chamber. The sound reverberated through the apartment, not as isolation, but as liberation. For once, I wasn't the overlooked daughter begging for scraps of affection. I was something untouchable, immovable. And this time, they were the ones left outside in the silence. The silence after I shut the door was sweet, like a first breath after surfacing from deep water. But it didn't last. By the end of the week, the calls multiplied. Not just from my parents, but from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. "Haley, can't you just help a little? Your brother's under stress. Don't be so cold. Cold. That word scorched hotter than any insult. Where was this sudden concern when I sat alone on my housewarming night, candles burning down to stubs while plates of food went cold? Where were they when my own milestones passed unnoticed, or when silence replaced applause? I didn't answer. Not a single call. Instead, I kept moving through my days with quiet defiance. Work that challenged me, dinners with friends who actually showed up, evenings spent in an apartment lit by the lamps I chose, walls decorated with art I loved. A life stitched together not by their approval, but by my persistence. Still, the buzzing phone on my counter throbbed like a reminder of the storm outside, rattling against the glass I'd built around myself. Then one voicemail caught me. My mother's voice trembled, stripped bare of her usual sharpness. "Haley, please. The bank is threatening foreclosure. If word gets out, it'll ruin us. People will know your brother failed. We can't let that happen. Please, just think about the family name." The family name. I almost laughed out loud. The same name that erased me from invitations. The same name that never clapped at my achievements. The same name that treated me as an afterthought. Now dangled in desperation, a banner suddenly worth protecting. That night, I sat at my desk and pulled out the one thing that silenced every plea, the paperwork for my apartment. Paid in full. No co-signers, no debts. Just me. I traced the letters of my name written in bold, proof that I had built something indestructible on my own. I snapped a photo of the deed, the ink still crisp, the paper heavy with meaning. Then I typed out a caption, each word chosen like a blade. Built this life without anyone's help. Some stories don't need saving, they tell themselves. I didn't post it yet. I just saved it, waiting for the moment when silence would no longer be enough. The power wasn't just in refusing them, it was in letting them stew, watching them slowly realize that I had already won. For the first time, I wanted them to see me shine, unobstructed, without their shadows looming over my light. Easter weekend arrived. The message I had drafted days ago sat in my phone like a loaded weapon, waiting. I hadn't posted it yet, but the temptation grew stronger with every desperate voicemail, every text dripping with entitlement. On Saturday, my brother finally called. His voice was thinner than I remembered, stripped of arrogance. The pride that once made him untouchable was gone, chipped away by desperation. "Haley, I know we've had our differences, but you can't just sit back and watch me lose everything. You're my sister. You're supposed to help." I let the words hang between us, sharp and heavy. Then, in a voice steadier than my heartbeat, I asked, "Did you think about me when you all skipped my housewarming? When you toasted your new place while I sat alone in mine? Was I your sister then?" His silence was louder than any apology. It told me everything I needed to know. That night, I opened my social media, hands steady as if I'd rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. I posted one photo, the deed to my apartment, my name printed bold and indisputable. The caption, "Built this life alone." Some stories tell themselves. Within hours, the notifications flooded in. Likes, shares, comments, co-workers cheering me on, old classmates reaching out with congratulations, distant cousins reacting with shock or support. My phone pulsed with validation, but more importantly, I knew, without question, that my family had seen it. By morning, my mother's text came through. "Haley, take it down. People are asking questions. You're humiliating us." I stared at the screen, smirk curling at my lips. I typed back slowly, savoring each word. "Funny. I remember asking for the same thing when you humiliated me. The difference is, I have proof, and I'm not deleting it." I hit send, and for the first time, I didn't just feel free. I felt untouchable. The weight had shifted again. For years, they wielded power through silence, through favoritism, exclusion, the careful art of pretending I didn't exist. But now it was different. Their silence had become the prison, and I was the one holding the key. For the first time, their shame wasn't a burden on my back. It was a chain around their necks. By the end of the month, the ripple effect from that single post had spread everywhere. At church, whispers floated down pews about parents who skipped their daughter's housewarming. At my brother's office, co-workers teased him about moving into a place he couldn't afford without begging his forgotten sister for help. Even my sister's golden facade fractured. Friends quietly unfollowed her, weary of her endless bragging now that the truth had bled into the open. And me? I hadn't spoken a word beyond that one caption. But silence, when paired with proof, was louder than any speech I could ever give. Then one evening, the storm came to my doorstep. A pounding rattled the apartment door. Through the peephole I saw them all, Mom, Dad, my brother, my sister, lined up like a broken portrait. I opened the door just a crack, leaning casually against the frame. "Well," I said, my voice calm as steel, "if it isn't the family that suddenly remembers where I live." My mom's mascara streaked down her cheeks, her tone stripped of all pride. "Haley, please take it down. We can't go anywhere without people whispering. Your brother's reputation is ruined. We're drowning in humiliation." My father's voice, once booming with authority, cracked like old wood. "We made a mistake. We should have been there for you. But don't destroy us over one night." I let them stand there, the silence stretching, heavy with irony. One night? For me, it had been years of nights. Birthdays abandoned, holidays ignored, achievements dismissed. Finally, I spoke, my voice softer than theirs but cutting deeper. "You taught me I was disposable. Now the world sees the truth. You disposed of me first." My brother tried to step forward, but I raised a hand, stopping him cold. "You don't get to rewrite this anymore. You left me alone once. Now you get to feel it too." Their eyes dropped, heavy with a shame they could no longer hide, and I shut the door. The click of the lock wasn't just final, it was freedom. Thanksgiving came again, and for the first time in years, I didn't dread it. My apartment glowed with warmth, a kind of light that no shadow from the past could touch. Candles flickered on the windowsills, laughter spilled from the kitchen, and the table brimmed with food, and more importantly, with people who truly valued me. There were no empty chairs left waiting for family who never arrived. As we raised our glasses, I felt something settle inside me, a peace I hadn't known in years. No performance, no pressure, just belonging. Meanwhile, across town, the story was different. A cousin slipped me a photo from my parents' house, a turkey burned at the edges, a table half full, my brother and sister glaring at each other while my parents forced brittle smiles through the silence. The caption beneath it read, "It's not the same without you." I didn't reply, because that was the truth. It wasn't the same. It never could be again. They had built their holidays, their family image, and their pride on my silence, on my willingness to be small. And when I stopped playing my part, when I finally stepped off their stage, everything they thought was solid cracked and collapsed. Later that night, when the laughter of my friends faded into the quiet hum of the city, I stood at the window, watching the lights pulse against the dark. My phone buzzed again. Another voicemail from my mother. Her voice carried the weight of something I had never heard before. Regret. "Haley, I'm sorry. We should have been there. We lost sight of what mattered. Please call me." But I didn't. Because poetic justice isn't loud. It doesn't need shouting or vengeance. It's the raw turkey on their table, the whispers in their circle, the empty chairs at their feast. It's the silence of a daughter who finally chose herself. They had wanted me invisible, Instead, I built a life too bright for them to dim. And as I stood there, the city stretching out like possibility itself, I knew I wasn't the forgotten one. I was the one who walked away.